Hey everyone, welcome to another recording of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. As we get things going, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my team and our guests, but we're not recording yet. So Charlie Cook is joining us. For those of you who were watching 30 minutes ago, you know he was just on with Riding Shotgun with Charlie, and he is coming to us from Massachusetts, not the home offices in Utah tonight. John Richardson, of course, from the Only Guns and Money blog. Amy are you coming to us again from Texas, Amy, or?
I'm in California today.
You're in California today. Okay. Our guest tonight is going to be Tim Crosnoe, but we haven't figured out why yet. So,
I'm finally excited to hear someone that you guys pick on more than me.
All right, and let me just make some checks over here. Okay, Tim made a hunting trip down to Argentina that I thought that sounded really cool. We want to talk to him about that, and we'll probably end up talking some Appleseed, which is how I first got to know Tim, and we'll be talking about marksmanship and hunting and all that through our 2 interview segments with Tim. And Tim, just inside information. Once we finish your interview segments, you can hang out if you want. You can bail if you want. Either way is up to you. So let me go check on show notes. I haven't brought them up yet. Has anybody edited an intro yet?
Yeah, it's all done.
Okay. And why do I not see? I don't see it. I see older ones, but let's see. We're on what, 628?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. We got the open all set.
Almost. Actually, we need to have someone. Nobody took host number 1, so we need someone to jump in and talk about Tim.
Terry.
Grace, whatever.
Everybody's just piling on, aren't they?
Right. Like I said, I'm so glad there's more than just me.
Amy, I'm making you host 1 today.
Okay.
All right, so I will take Amy's line.
All right. And so I'm just you don't need to reintroduce yourself, so I'm just going to take that out.
Thank you, Susan.
Susan, I don't have audio from you. Are you muted?
Yeah, I was. You're
Okay.
welcome.
All right. I do believe we are now set to fly for, well, no, we're not, because I got to connect social media yet. That takes just a second or 2. Okay. For those of you who are catching us live on social media, or if you are catching us, and I got to get that started. Okay, we are now streaming to OpsLens, although we should have been for the past 10 minutes, but there we go. If you are catching us on social media, go ahead and comment on the live video on either Facebook or YouTube. If you are catching us on OpsLens, whether they're their social media or whether you're watching on the OpsLens app, if you want to get your comment in, you still can. Just comment with the hashtag on Twitter, PS Podcast. By the way, that is the fastest way to get a comment in, no matter where you're watching. Those go busting right through all the filters on social media and get right to me. So if you've got to let Tim know that he's just too ugly to be on TV, that's how you do it. So, and then Tim, we do a very short, what have we been doing since the last time we've been on the air? It takes about 10 minutes. While that's going, we're going to have a 4-shot with just us up. And then when we go to the interview, we'll have the 6-shot up. So, and I think on my end, we are ready to fly. Is everybody on my staff ready to go? All right. Here we go then. Masad Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, July the 25th, 2022. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Amy Dillon, and on tonight's show, we talk with Tim Crosnoe about Project Appleseed and the big hunt he just came back from.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk more about the Good Samaritan in Indianapolis.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about which senators were complaining about their inability to block firearm exports. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 628 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, we are back. It is Monday night, 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters. So that means it's time for the Polite Society podcast. Charlie, normally I start with Rob, but he, I believe, is underwater somewhere this evening. Charlie, what's been up with you since the last time we seen you on Polite Society, bud?
I've had a kind of a busy week. I took a U.S. Law Shield seminar last week, and it was kind of interesting. It was good to hear someone that it's actually a guy that I've known his name for a while, but he's an attorney, and he does a lot of firearm stuff, obviously in Massachusetts. And it's good to know that the Massachusetts gun laws really are stupid. I had a Utah class this past weekend, but it was not in Utah. It was in Massachusetts. And yesterday I took a client shooting for a couple hours. It's a woman who I took her shooting. She took a class. She bought a gun. I took her shooting, and then she didn't shoot again. So we went to refresh herself with the refresher with her Easy 380 and had a good time with that. John, how about yourself?
Well, I visited with Gary Doherty this weekend, who used to be on the show as one of the co-hosts. He came through Asheville on his way to Chicago. We had a great visit. As I mentioned last week, he is the Republican nominee for the Kane County Board of Commissioners, and as of now, the Democrats don't have a candidate to oppose him, so it looks like he's going to be a county commissioner. In other news, Barb and I made the decision to drive to GRPC instead of flying. When I ran the numbers each way, it's still cheaper to drive. Moreover, we're going to do a little road trip to see some of the other sites in Texas. We'll remember the Alamo and maybe get to Gonzales and other places. So, anyway, Amy, go ahead.
Even with fuel prices being in the car what they are, it's still cheaper for two people to drive than to fly?
Well, the way I figured it, I was going to use about 50 gallons of gas round trip at 20 miles per gallon, which was actually a low estimate, at $4 and some cents per gallon. Yeah. It came out to be about $400 or $500. It came out to be somewhere between $400 and $500. The cheapest ticket I could find for one person was $588.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure the fuel costs are transferring over to the airlines.
They are
well.
indeed. Yep.
Yeah, jet fuel's not exactly cheap. I was talking with Mike Pilarski about that. He's a pilot and does sometimes fly those things. So, Amy, what have you been up to for the past week?
Well, I attempted to shoot a 1,200-yard match. And here's a little tip. If you are planning on shooting a long-distance match like that, make sure you don't forget your bipod, because the gun I brought, I forgot my bipod, and I was using shooting bags to try to get my elevation, and it just didn't work out for me. I couldn't get out past 700 yards, but I tried, and it was a lot of fun. It's a different challenge shooting out to that distance versus, your typical just regular close distance matches, but that was a lot of fun. I've been traveling and shooting. I'm actually in California visiting family for the next few weeks, and I actually signed up for a pistol steel match this weekend, so I'll be doing that this weekend. I'm going to be practicing for that. I've been still working with Gators Eyewear on trying to introduce their tactical protective eyewear that's used in a lot of the military spec ops communities, the U.S. Navy SEALs, for example. But they've come out with a lot of new styles that are good for regular competitive shooters and anyone who's looking for good eyewear that is still stylish enough to use off the range. So if you want to check them out, you can go to gators.com and get 15% off with the discount code Amy15. My fiance Dave and I, and if you don't know my fiance, he is a Parkinson's shooter. He's known for being a professional competitive shooter who also lives with this. But we're launching a virtual challenge with NSSF's in time for National Shooting Sports next month. So if anyone wants to check that out and kind of see some of the stuff that we're planning for the rest of the year, you can go to guntherapy.org to hear more about Dave's story and how we're working together to bring some of what he's going through and doing some research to hopefully get gun therapy as a recognized therapy for people with Parkinson's and other people living with neurological and physical disabilities.
All right. On my end, Susan and I, what I've been up to. Susan, first of all, do you want to list anything you've been up to this past week? You're going to be speaking Thursday night.
I'm going to be speaking Thursday night. I am giving a talk to a local group. You didn't tell me you wanted me to elaborate. I'm going to be speaking to a local group here in town called the Patriot Ripple Effect about the DC project.
Hey.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
So I'm a little nervous about that, but it'll all be good. That's what I keep telling myself.
All right. On my end, I am going to be I did the bullet today with Charlie. I'm going to be doing the bullet tomorrow with Craig DeLuz. And then Wednesday, I'm doing the bullet with Amanda Suffolk. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, no bullet. Monday next week, no Polite Society because I'm leaving. I am going to Detroit. Charlie, you're going to be on your way to Detroit. We're going to be helping out Rick Ector. And if you are a female and you are within traveling distance of Detroit and would like some free training, get the I wish I had the
Top Gun Shooting Sports and Recoil Range.
Are the two ranges, yeah, but you do have to register. I wish I knew just search anywhere legally armed in Detroit. You'll find how to register there. But it's a free training weekend for women in Detroit. They're hoping to train over 2,000 women basic firearms use in one weekend. I'm going to be among the instructors that help with that. I am super pumped, and I cannot wait to get going to help with that training. It's going to be the first time I've helped out with that. Charlie's first time you helped with that as well, right?
Yes, it's going to be my first time.
All right. So very, very much looking forward to that. Before we get to the interview, I do need to let everybody know, please do go and let me go ahead and try to refresh that browser. There we go. Self-Defense Radio Network. I want to tell you about SDRN, all your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. As you can see, we're up there. Self-Defense Gun Stories by Rob Morse. Riding Shotgun with Charlie. You can see Charlie's podcast is there. It's also a podcast, not just video. All in all, a lot of great shows. Right now we have 13 shows. We have more shows that are going to be going up there. Dan Waz's Loaded Mic program has applied to get on the network. We're working to get that show up there as well. So sdrn.us, you can listen right from the website, or there's subscription information for all the shows right there. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and step to break. When we come back, we're not really sure why, but we're going to be talking with Tim Crosnoe for our interview segments. We'll be right back with that right after we hear from ACLDN.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Massad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
Welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining us for the interview segment, Tim Crosnoe. Tim is if you've heard Tim on the air, if you're a long-time listener, and I mean long-time because it's been a while since he's been on the air. It's been a couple of years. When he came up to do Mag 40 training, he was on the air with me, but Tim is an Appleseed instructor and a friend of mine, and been a friend of mine for a number of years. The reason we brought Tim on this time is because, well, A, we felt sorry for him, and B, he just completed what a lot of people would consider a bucket list item. He took a hunting trip down to South America, went to Argentina, and did some dove hunting. Is that right, Tim?
That is true, Paul. That's exactly what we did. Me and a couple of cousins of mine went down there.
Very cool. So when did you get back up here?
We did this at the end of May to get the extra day, because we ended up combining it with a little bit of a vacation. It was a 4-day hunt, but we went for 10 days. Okay. So we did it over Labor Day to try to get, or not Labor Day, Memorial Day to try to get that extra day in there. So it's winter time down there, so it was a little chilly, but not too bad. It's kind of like about the same latitude south as Waco, Texas is north. So anybody's familiar with that, yeah.
So look, I want to get into the logistics of going on a hunt out of the country, if I could. Argentina is not exactly known as a bastion of freedom, of firearms freedom. What is it like getting? Were you allowed to bring your own shotgun? Did you have to use one that you got down there? What was the process?
The answer to that is a little complicated. You can do that. You can bring your own shotgun. It is highly discouraged because of the fact that you may end up having to transfer through multiple countries. There's a lot of paperwork involved, but they strongly encourage you to rent while you're there. There is no individual ownership of guns down there. The company that we worked with actually owns the firearms that we use. They have they have a few licensed people that are able to bring them to and from the field to the safes and then back out to the field. So the only time you ever touch them is when you get to the field. You can bring yours, but again, if you've got high dollar shotguns, that's not something you want to do. And frankly, it's just a logistic nightmare. So I would strongly encourage people just to stick with the rentals. They actually have a really good rentals. They use Benelli's, Brownings, Berettas. So the shotguns that they use are very good. You won't have any worry about that. They might not fit you exactly. Mine was a little rough of a fit, but you can get used to it after a while. Once you've shot your first 500 rounds, you pretty much get used to the shotgun you're shooting. But no, I would not encourage anyone to take one down there. The gun rental might have been $50, $75 a day. And that's for a morning and afternoon shoot. So it doesn't really make any sense to try to bring your own shotgun down there and potentially lose it to some government that's not amenable to you doing that.
Sure. If the chief of police down there happens to fall in love with your Benelli, your $1,200 shotgun may go away.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I mean, we flew straight from Houston to Buenos Aires, so technically, we probably could have gotten away with it, but there was no way. It was just too complicated.
All right, so explain what, specifically about dove hunting, explain what a day of dove hunting in Buenos Aires, or not in Buenos Aires, obviously you weren't, that's a very large city, but a day of dove hunting in Argentina, explain what that was like.
Well, there's several resorts all over Argentina. We were in a city called Cordoba, which was northwest of Argentina. You had to take a plane flight. We had to individually take plane flight from Buenos Aires to Cordoba because it's about a 7-hour drive, so you really don't want to do that. So initially, when we flew from Buenos Aires in the morning to Cordoba, it was an early morning flight, and they took us. In fact, you dressed in your field gear. As soon as you hit the ground, they picked you up, took you out to the dove hunting fields right off the bat from the airport in Cordoba. And you'd hunt till lunch, maybe a little bit after that. And then you were treated to a gourmet chef prepared field lunch, which included meat like you wouldn't believe. Just prepared meats were pork and beef and a little bit of doves. I'll go into that a little bit later. They don't use as much as you think on the doves, but they had vegetables and potatoes and salads, and it was a nice table spread out there, and they had wine for you. And essentially you had a nice leisurely lunch and then a siesta after that if you wanted to just take a little bit of a break. And then bam, you were right back out in the field. You took off, went right back out there, and you hunted till it started till dusk, basically. And then they take you back to the estancia, which is their little resort area, and you get off the bus, and they meet you with drinks and appetizers right there at the door. And you walk in, and you grab your appetizer and your drink, and you head to your room, take a shower, and then you come back to the main lobby area where they had the drinks ready for you, and then dinner was prepared again, chef-style dinner that night. And then if you weren't exhausted, you'd go back out to the campfire out back with maybe a whiskey and a cigar, and you talk to your other hunters out there. So they really do pamper you. And this is not just my resort. This is how they run it down there. All of the companies run them like that. They have to. So yes, are you spoiled a little bit? Yeah, but you do. It's tiring. It's a lot of shooting. I mean, a lot of shooting, which is why most people elect to go with the 20 gauge. So most people are surprised to hear about that. But once you've shot as many times as I did and my cousins did, you totally understand why you have to go that route.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open. First of all, before I open it up to my staff, I'm going to say, I hope you took it a little easy on the lunch wine. But
I'll tell you, I will tell you, for your listeners, and I've told a lot of people this, these guys are not the most safety conscious people in the world. Let me put it that way. I had to institute my safety operations on some of them especially when trucks were driving right in front of your blind. The guide wanted to go out and pick up some doves, and he's like, "Yeah, no, go ahead, keep shooting." I'm like, "Sorry, sorry, Tata. That was my. Oh, Bird Boy. You get a Bird Boy, by the way. He's the one that reloads your shotgun for you whenever it goes empty. So all you do is you turn the shotgun over, and he just throws more shells in there, and you go back to shooting. But they are not very, I had to basically say, look, I'm not going to be shooting when you're out in front of me, or anything's out in front of me other than the birds. I'm just not going to do it. So he got used to it, and then once he got used to it, then it was on. But in the afternoon, I will have to admit, after a while, you're sitting there and you're just getting a little bit tired. And he's like, "Hey, do you want a beer?" And I said, "What do you mean? Do I want a beer?" And he said he's got these drink holders that they put in the ground right beside your gun, and they just pop open a beer and put it in there. And I said, "Well, this is new and not real safe." But I said, "Yeah, I could probably have a beer," because I was thirsty, and so I had a beer. I was like, I might as well do as when in Rome, have the one beer. And I was like, that's pretty much all I'm going to have. You got water, but glad you did that. You got the nice little drink holder out there, but it's a whole different type of hunting. They are very good. They are very good guides, though. They do know what they're doing. They're very good shots. As we would let them shoot a few times in competitions. You get bored. I mean, literally, you get bored after a while because they come over in such big waves that it's like shooting ducks in a barrel. Most people go down there for a 4-day hunt. They're looking for the 1,000 bird club.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. My cousin, I didn't hit it, but I know my cousin did. He was dropping everything he was shooting at. And it was these are boys from Southeast Missouri who do a lot of dove hunting. I don't do as much here because we don't have as much public land, but they've got a lot of land down there, and they do a lot more hunting. And he was just on fire. And when we got done, his guide said, "Oh yeah, he hit the 1,000 bird club. There was no question about that." But after a while, you got to make it a little interesting. So we would give our guns to our guides, let them shoot our ammo, and we like, "Okay, you guys got 5 shots. Whoever drops the most birds." You have to pick your shot when you're doing that. Whoever drops the most birds wins. So we would play a little game like that with them, and they really enjoyed it. We got them involved, so they weren't just mindlessly reloading our shotguns for us. But they were great. And if we weren't seeing a lot of birds, in their opinion, a lot of birds, they would slap us on the bus and take us to a new place because they always had a guy out scouting other locations. Because they had I think he said they had over 500 acres of different shooting properties all around that they had leased from the landowners that they could run us around and take us to new properties if we were having issues. So we always were, and he said the summer was even better. I can't imagine that. The winter was good enough, but he said the summer it's like mosquitoes. I mean, they're just everywhere.
Wow.
And that leads me to the next. I'll go ahead and get into the next thing. Is the reason that is because they do not have a lot of organic hunters. They just don't, because A, they can't own weapons, and B, they don't have a culture. So all of the hunting and all of the pressure on the doves is due to the tourists coming and hunting them. They don't really have any natural predators. They've got a lot of different eagles and hawks, but they're basically carrion feeders. So as you drop them in the field, these things are dropping out of the sky and picking these up out of the field, and they're big. They're big, and there's a lot of them. So you got to watch not to shoot one of those. We do not eat most of those doves. They leave them lie. They did pick up a few for lunch, but nowhere near the amount we dropped. And even though you did drop them, they manage them well. And again, not many hunters, they come back in droves. Their management is pretty much it makes its own gravy, as you can say. They are self-managed because they just aren't overpressured.
All right. Well, before I turn it over to my staff, I want to say if you have a question for Tim, go ahead and comment on either the live Facebook or live YouTube video. We'll get your question up. And at that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my staff. Anybody have a question for Tim?
Yeah. Tim, when you're dove shooting there, you have clouds of doves from what I've understood.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you actually helping out the farmers a bit?
Oh yeah. That's the other thing that they're doing. That's why a lot of the farmers, once you in there, they've got a lot of corn crops. It's very similar because it's very similar to our grain belt area. They've got a lot of grains. They also per capita consume the most beef in the world. That's even compared to us. So you've got those two things going on. So they got to keep those cattle fed, and doves can be crazy on the corn and the milo and whatever else they got growing down there, as well as most people don't know this. They've got a native feral. No, that's kind of duplicative. They've got a native parakeet population. So you are also allowed to hunt the parakeets. So between the dove, they said you can hunt three things: doves, parakeets, and pigeons. The motto is, if it flies, it dies.
I actually used to have parakeets as pets when I was younger. So that's funny to hear.
And they're all over.
So are they like a problem species in Argentina, similar to how hogs are a problem in Texas?
Oh, they're a problem species. I wouldn't put them in the hog category. Hogs are on a whole another level down here, as you know. But the parakeets were bad, and they had nests everywhere. And their nests, if you've ever seen a parakeet nest, they nest in colonies. So they will take an entire windmill face, and they will nest it in. And there'll be 2-3 dozen birds living in that colony, and they'll lock it up. They'll do it on power lines. Basically at the tops of the poles. They're pretty. So you got to go up and clean them. So they said, if you see parakeets, and we killed a few of those too as they fly by. They're really distinguishable because they show up really bright green in the sunlight.
Now, is this something is this something that they kind of educate you on, or is this something that you knew going, like when you?
Oh, I did not know that going in. No. All of a sudden because they don't know a lot of English. I knew enough Spanish to get by, but they when you picked up the gun, you knew what a dove. The dove looks very similar flying here, the same type of dove. It looks very similar flying here, but every once in a while you'd pick up a songbird and he'd go, "No, Tweety." So you wouldn't kill that, but then he'd go parakeet, and he'd go shoot him. And I'm like, oh really? He goes, oh yeah, parakeets are horrible down here. So, pigeons were easy they fly the same way they do down there as they do here, so you could pick them up pretty fast. They're pretty slow moving, easy targets, but we didn't see as many of those. It was mostly doves, then parakeets, then pigeons.
So you weren't allowed to hunt Tweety bird. Okay, Sylvester will be happy to hear that.
Yes, no Tweety birds. No Tweety birds.
When you're in this, are you hunting in a group, or do you have like a one-on-one guide that goes out with you each day?
Each person has their own bird boy. We did, however, hunt individually, and we hunted together. I had my two cousins, actually my cousin and his son. There were times where, I started getting a little bit frustrated because doves, if you haven't been wing shooting, practicing a lot, it's probably the most challenging because those things are fast. They dart around. They'll come in at 90 miles an hour right over your head. So as it got frustrating, he'd put us all together and we'd make a kind of a competition and, rib each other a little bit. So it was kind of fun hunting together, but they're pretty flexible. If you want to hunt with your buddies, if you bring in a spouse, especially, I know we had a couple spouses, pairs of spouses in our resort, and they were able to hunt together, no problem. But each person has their own bird boy because, again, that person is loading your shotgun for you. So you have to be right on it as soon as a wave passes. You take also you can have more than 3 shots. Mine was 5. So they'll just keep it topped off. As the waves go by, he'll top it off, and then you're ready to go again.
I would imagine if you were to it'd be in the general public, you could tell who had employment as a bird boy if they got calluses 3 inches thick on their thumb.
They would tape their thumbs up. They would actually tape their thumbs up, and mine actually would put nitrile gloves on top of that, and then he'd have a taped up thumb. So it wasn't his first rodeo. He'd done it before. And then I gave him a pair of mine. When you leave, it's traditional to give them some gifts, and I had 2 pairs of gloves, and I was like, man, you really need these worse than I do. So here, take these gloves and go at it. And they were military grade from when I was deployed, and I had plenty of those, so I gave those to him too to use.
Very cool. Any?
I do have a question.
John.
How was your shoulder after the 4 days?
Good question. They do warn you what to take when you go down there. Obviously, Eye and Ear Pro you take down, but the other thing you take, Caldwell makes a shoulder pad, and if you don't wear a shirt every day that has one, but the Caldwell one is a little thicker, that you can actually put your arm through, and then it wraps around the back of your body and it clips under your shoulder, and that saved the day. And the reason I know that is because my cousin's boy, didn't have it sitting quite right, and he showed, even with a 20 gauge, he was complaining about being sore that first day. And I said, "Man, you sure you have your pad right?" I said, "Mine's fine. You know, as long as you get the end of that stock, the butt of that stock right on that pad, and the pad's pretty big. I said, you're not going to have a problem." So, you know, after going through, I probably went through 1,000 rounds. So even after going through 1,000 rounds, I didn't have any issues. I can't say that I wouldn't if I would have gone with the 12 gauge. But I might, going back, I might try it. That's an option. But they didn't have a lot of those around. Most everyone was shooting 20s. But no, wasn't a problem for me. Wasn't a problem for my older cousin. And even when my younger cousin left, he was fine. Not a big deal. For ladies, it would be. Even the ladies that were there had no problem with it.
Do they have options for even lighter guns than 20 gauge? Do they have 18s? Do they have 410s?
Well, really, yeah, you don't want to do that. It's already hard enough. I mean, if you've never been dove hunting, I don't know if some states aren't dove hunting states here in this.
We shoot pheasants up here.
Yeah, well, some of them they're songbirds and they're not allowed. I mean, that's really weird to me, being from Missouri and Texas, because we don't have that problem. But I did hear that, and come to find out, you got to be kidding me. There are states you can't do that. Doves are probably the hardest things to hit that are on the wing, in my opinion. They move fast. They can turn on a dime. But no, you could go with a 20. I don't even know if they had 28s. They didn't have 16s. So you go 20, 16 is a level higher. 16s between 20 and 12. Mm-hmm. They didn't have 16s. 12 was an option. You do not want to go any lower than a 20 on a dove hunt. It's just not advisable. You're going to get really, really frustrated. Unless you're like Jerry Mitchell, that can hit it with a 410 if you wanted to. Somebody like that could probably make it challenging, but they are really tough, and I probably wouldn't go any less than a 20 gauge on that.
We are coming up on break. Tim, I do want to talk to you about Appleseed. Could I be hanging on with one more segment with us?
Are you still going to be on the segment, or is somebody else going to run it? Because that makes a difference.
Touche. Touche.
Sure, I'll be around.
All right. Hang on, everybody. We're going to hear from CNJFO. We will be back right after this, and we'll unfortunately still be talking with Tim Crosnoe. Right back.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the second interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We're still here with Tim Crosnoe. Tim, how I got to know you was through Project Appleseed and your representation of Project Appleseed. And I want to talk to you about, I haven't covered Appleseed on this show in quite some time. If I could, if you were to give an elevator pitch for Appleseed, a 30, 45 second introduction, what is Appleseed and why should people be interested?
Okay. That's an easy one, actually. We do it all the time. The Appleseed, Project Appleseed is a program, and we say it's for all ages. I tell people it's for people from ages 8 to 80. I've had kids as young as 5. That's up to the individual shoot boss, but it is for all ages. And has a twofold purpose, really. Its purpose is to teach basic rifle marksman fundamentals, shooting fundamentals, positional shooting, but it's combined with a lesson in history that you will not hear now in present-day schools. The history of the beginning of the actual Revolutionary War fighting, the conflict itself. What we explain is the Revolutionary War. We ask a question: when and where did it start? Is one of the questions that we open with, and I'm going to give you a little primer on that. It started in the hearts and minds of the American people when they started getting upset with the control that the British government was placing on them due to the taxing and the control that King George wanted to have over the colonies. And we discuss what made that mental revolution break into a physical revolution. And we talk about that first day when the American colonists decided that enough was enough and they needed to do something to regain the freedom. So our job is to reinvigorate that into that feeling of the American Revolution into the hearts and minds of the American people, or at least those that attend our events. And we've actually been very successful in doing that.
One of the things about, as I first started learning about Project Appleseed, one of the things that opened my eyes as a brand new podcaster back when I first started the Politics and Guns podcast more than 10 years ago, and I interviewed one of the people that founded Appleseed. I believe he went by Scout. He's no longer with us, but one of the things that opened my eyes when I interviewed him was that he reiterated, and I've kept this with me, and I keep mentioning it from time to time. When two things. Number one, the saying wasn't the British are coming, the British are coming. We were all British at that time. It was the Redcoats are coming. And what the Redcoats were coming for, they weren't coming for our muskets. They were coming for the powder and the cannons that we had. So going to fast forward to today where the president says, you've never been able to own cannons. Well, right. Actually, yes, Mr. President, we should take you to an Appleseed event.
Yeah, they were. The other thing that we definitely emphasize when we're doing those events is that we are apolitical. We really work hard, even though it's tough in today's era. We work hard to stay away from modern politics. We talk about the politics of 1775, which you just have. But the evidence was clear back then that we were able and should have had the same armament capability that the government had, and that kept us free. So we don't get into it now because we try to be a program for all people. We want everyone to come and exercise their Second Amendment rights. If you draw parallels with what's going on today through what we talk about, then that's on you. But we encourage you to embrace the freedom that the Founding Fathers gave for us, not realizing at all whether or not they were even going to win. Most of them could have easily ended up at the end of a hangman's noose or just outright shot. Homes burned down. All that actually happened. But none of those people knew we were going to win when they went into it. So that's one of the most astonishing things I could think, and I try to put in people's mind. Would you do the same thing? Would you have marched forward, not knowing what the outcome was going to be? And it's a lot for people to think about.
It's been explained to me as about half of its history, about half of it is marksmanship, going to an Appleseed event. I want to skip to the marksmanship if I could. This is primarily a rifle program, correct?
Yes.
for rifles, is there the most popular rifle in America right now? Is it chambered usually in 223? I would imagine 22 long rifle allowed, and what are other larger calibers than 223 allowed?
Yeah, a couple things. I want to back up a little bit. We are predominantly a rifle organization. We are becoming a rifle and pistol organization. So we do have pistol events as well now. That has transpired within about the last 1 to 2 years. Several states have been standing up pistolier programs, so you can find those as well on the schedule. As far as the break in history and shooting, it's probably a little bit more shooting. We're probably talking the neighborhood of 80 or 75 to 80% shooting and 20 to 25% history most of the time at a standard event. Calibers. You mentioned the two that we mainly use. Probably the predominant one at a 25-meter event is the 22 long rifle. However, depending on the range and what they allow, the policy for Appleseed is we'll accept up to an 8mm. So if you want to do the $3 shots, you could do that with an 8mm as long as the range allows it. But the most predominant of the two are the 22 long rifle and the AR-15, the 223. We will get a few M1 Garands because that's civilian marksmanship program area. Mm-hmm. And when you join one of our sister organizations as well as attend an event, you are able to buy guns and ammo from the CMP. We make you eligible to do that. So we will see a few M1 Garands. Mostly we'll see those on our 400-yard events, but mm-hmm. I have seen one or two out at our 25-meter ones as well. So yeah, those two. And hey, bring what you got. We say bring what you got. If you got a bolt action, that's all you have. You don't have the means to go out and buy a semi-auto. Semi-autos are the easiest to use. Bring the bolt action. Bring the tube fed. We even have people bring lever actions. That's really difficult. But bring what you've got, and we'll work with you.
Yeah. So if you got Tim Crosnoe money and you want to bring that 6.5 Grendel, then go ahead and bring it.
Wow. That's my deer rifle. That's my deer rifle, Paul. I can't shoot up deer ammo on that.
I did my first Appleseed this past year, and when you talk about shooting the expensive rounds, I think I brought 1,000 rounds with me, and I think I ended up shooting probably 400 rounds, 400 to 450 rounds. Yeah, and it was quite a bit of ammo, so I can't imagine the cost of shooting something bigger than 22s. I ended up, they have the three levels. They have marksman, they have sharpshooter, and they have rifleman. And I ended up shooting as an Englishman. So I told everyone, I said, listen, rest assured, if I was around on April 19th, 1775, we'd all be drinking warm beer, we'd be driving on the left side of the road, and we'd have bad teeth.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you generally on an event, you can shoot anywhere from, I think the lowest amount I've ever seen at a 25 meters, about 300, and I've seen as many as 500, to be honest with you. Depends on just how good all the shooters are. The better they are, the more you're going to shoot. But we have to kind of slow it down if we don't have seasoned shooters on the line. We have to make sure that everybody's kept kind of at the same level. So that's why you might see a little bit lower numbers on some of the shoots. But nobody seems to complain about it, and they all have a good time. So that's what we really want to do. Is I want my shooters, at least at my events, and I think most shoot bosses would do the same thing. Is, hey, did you have a good time? Did you learn something? What was the biggest thing you learned at this event? We ask those kinds of questions at the end, and when we do, we get a lot of good answers. We also have questionnaires that go out. I know corporately they send out questionnaires to some of the participants, and we get, I think it's about a quarterly feedback on that questionnaire to see all over the nation what people are saying and any complaints or kudos that they give us about the program to try to help improve it. So.
Very cool. Well, we are, again, these segments just fly by. We're coming up on the end of the segment. If people do go to, and thank you to DJ Play Nice who put the comment in over on the YouTube side, if people go to appleseedinfo.org, they can get information on apple seeds that are happening near them, and you have them even in anti-gun New York, anti-gun California. You have these all over the place, right?
Yeah, we do. You may find that some of those more gun-friendly, ungun-friendly states might have fewer. Some of them may have special restrictions. But yes, we do have them there. But we're trying. If we don't have shoots in every state, we're trying very hard to get them up and running in those states. It's a matter of just getting the staff trained and getting enough staff there that they can man these events. Several states are excellent at this. I mean, Texas is one of them. Florida is another one. Ohio, Michigan's great. So we do have them scattered around. So even if it's not in your state, be a border raider, as we call them. Go take a look at the neighboring states and see what they've got going on, because more likely than not, they're going to have events as well.
All right, and we talked about this pre-show, but I do want to bring it up on the air as well, so it goes out to the big audience. And if somebody like me who's got 50-plus-year-old eyes that are not getting any younger, if I want to go to an Appleseed, can I bring my rifle that's got the optic on it?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I recommend anyone who's wearing readers. And that's really the point where you can't focus on the front sight anymore of some irons. And it's not a pistol, so you can get away with it with a pistol. You cannot get away with not being able to focus on the front sight with a rifle, especially with as small as the targets as we have. So I would strongly encourage anyone who can't focus on that front sight, put an optic on that rifle. Make sure that if you know what it is, get your eye relief right before you come to the event, because that's one of the tough things that we can't fix very easily on the line. And so, yes, no more than about a 4 to 6 power, or just leave it at that level. Don't turn it up. But that's pretty much it. Yes, bring your optics. Absolutely.
Very cool. All right.
I will say this real quick. I had a problem with the sling. I have a sling that's a carry sling, and I struggled with I shot worse with the sling than without it, and I probably tried doing the qualification like 5 times. I was determined to get the rifleman patch, and I walked home without it, aggravated and frustrated with my sling.
It's very tough to use a normal sling other than the USGI sling that we recommend. If you had the USGI sling, then an instructor should have worked with you a little bit longer on that. But if you don't, that USGI $22 sling that you can get on Amazon or our Appleseed store, that's the one you want. And these things are amazing. Amazing. Get the cotton one, not the nylon one.
All right. Well, that's going to be the time we have. Tim, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, even if I did give you a little bit of grief, man. You bore it well.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, Paul. Talk about Argentina, but especially Appleseed. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm glad we did.
All right. Folks, we do have a lot of news to cover. I'm going to have you hang on. We got another break coming. We're going to hear from the Complete Combatant. We'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
And welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Warning, I just looked at clock and realized at 5 minutes to 7, we've been going 55 minutes. We're just coming out of the interview segment. We're not getting out of here by the bottom of the hour because we've got too much to talk about. So you're getting a magnum-size episode, as Charlie Cook likes to call the long episodes of the Bullet. We'll get you out of here as soon as we can after the bottom of the hour, but we're not going to be able to get out of here by 7:30 Central Time. So those of you who are commenting like the show's ending over on YouTube, hang on. We got more to come. If you got to go, go, but come back and catch us. So anyway, Susan, let's go to the news. We've got what first one we're talking about, the Greenwood Mall shooting, right?
Yes. Following the Greenwood Mall shooting, the anti-gun crowd has done their best to villainize the event and the hero. The shooter spent an hour in the mall bathroom with 2 rifles and a handgun before exiting and opening fire. The hero, Eli Dicken, has been called a good Samaritan by local police and a vigilante by the president of the Brady Bunch. Originally, it was said that it took 2 minutes for Dicken to drop the shooter. Then the police chief corrected himself. It took 15 seconds at 40 yards. 8 out of 10 shots. No collateral damage by Dicken. The coroner reported 8 bullet wounds on the shooter, and none were self-inflicted. In a recent Trafalgar Group poll on behalf of the Convention of States Action, roughly 40% of respondents said the best protection against a mass shooting is an armed citizen, with local and federal officers at 25% and 10% respectively.
John, you're up first in show notes.
Yeah, we all know that Eli Dicken shot better than most police and probably certainly better than me. Whether it was 40 feet or 40 yards, it was a phenomenal shooting. More important to me was that he recognized within 15 seconds what was going on and reacted, as opposed to going, is that a car backfiring? Is that fireworks? What am I hearing? He heard it, he saw it, he reacted, and he saved a ton of lives as a result.
I mentioned this on the Bullet here, little under an hour ago, when Charlie and I were talking. I was going through Facebook memories today, and 4 years ago, I went to an active shooter interdiction class at the Firearms Academy of Seattle, and I posted to Facebook, and I'd forgotten the exact scenario, but 4 years ago today, I shot non-dominant hand 42 yards. I was getting hits on target from cover at the active shooter interdiction class. Also, even harder than that at the active shooter interdiction course was 25 yards. Didn't matter which hand you held it in, shooting a moving target while you are moving. I was able to accomplish that as well. I've had a stroke between here and there. Are my abilities the same now as they were then? Yeah, I'm not positive. I've lost some. Maybe I could do it again, but maybe not. I need to go through some more training again, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's also worth noting that Eli was not someone with a prior military or law enforcement background. I think he's 22 years old, and from what I read, was trained by his grandfather, and it just proves how important training is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's a training junkie like a lot of us are, but he had enough. So I want to get this comment up here real quick. The Brady Bunch are the vigilantes, unless we're talking about the 70s TV show. And, yeah, looking over here at, hey, but no, yeah, we'll leave that right there. Let's, in the interest of trying to get out of here close to time, Susan, Menendez and Warren. John,
can I say something before we go on?
Yeah.
I think last week we said we did not think that Eli Dickin had a carry permit. He actually did. His lawyer has said that, yes, he did have a carry permit. He got it after he turned 21. Nonetheless, Indiana is a constitutional carry state.
Yeah.
But he did have a carry permit.
If I'm remembering right, he had a lifetime carry permit. Indiana, before they went permitless carry, allowed you to purchase a lifetime permit for a little more than a regular permit, but you didn't have to go back every 4 to 5 years and renew it.
I'm looking at his permit right now. It says lifetime.
Nice.
All right, Susan, let's see what Elizabeth Warren's up to.
Senate anti-gunners Bob Menendez and Elizabeth Warren are lamenting the fact that they cannot export their gun control to the rest of the world. They're trying to undo export reforms from the Obama administration, which was finalized by the Trump administration. The move of export licensing to the Department of Commerce, Bureau of Industry Security, from the State Department. Menendez claimed that the BIS process lacks human rights review and had blocked the nomination of Undersecretary Alan Estevez until he got a new BIS rule for congressional notification for semi-automatic firearms being exported to certain countries, but does not allow Congress to disapprove the license. Warren, she was just looking for campaign sound bites. Both of their facts were false and slanted to their own ends.
Yeah, a politician being dishonest. Color me shocked. Charlie, you're in show notes. What do you think, bud?
One of my favorite podcasters, who's not a gun guy, likes to play a game called Stupid or Liar. And are these people stupid or are they liars? Like, this is my big thing here. Elizabeth Warren, obviously, she has no interest in anything that's positively firearm related, and the politicians, the non-gun folks, make gun policies, and I've been saying this for a long time since we've been talking about the shoulder thing that goes up with what's her name, who I'm drawing a blank with. Why are they even bothering with
McCarthy.
this? Yes, Carolyn McCarthy. Thank you. Yeah, this is ridiculous. I will say this: the politicians in Massachusetts like to brag about the gun control that we have here, and they want to export all of the gun control that we have out to you guys in free America.
Yeah, It's too bad Lizzie Warren doesn't remember where she came from, Oklahoma, which is a good carry state. But, when the Trump administration changed export licensing to the Department of Commerce, what they were doing was taking a lot of stuff that was non-military hardware and basically removed it from ITAR, because you're not really dealing in military items.
Mm-hmm.
It's your Benelli your Browning shotgun, your Ruger your Ruger Model 77, your Ruger 1021, that's being sent to other countries. Big deal.
Yeah. The next thing you know, we're going to have limits on. Charlie and I talked about the New York Police Department going after air rifles. Next thing you know, we're going to have ITAR limits on BB guns. It just, the ridiculousness spreads. And Charlie, isn't your senator Elizabeth Warren?
Yes, I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. Yeah, I love all of the shirts that Yehuda puts out, that Yehuda Reamer puts out, and I bought one that had a lever action rifle on it, and it says, "I'm not even 1,024th anti-gun."
Nice. Nice.
It felt completely appropriate that I should spend the $20 and buy that shirt.
Well, I've got to say, the reason I did the ancestry DNA testing was I had a cousin who swore that our grandfather had some Cherokee blood, and I wanted to prove that I had more Cherokee in me than Lizzie Warren. I don't.
You don't?
I don't even have one. I don't. But I have more Irish than she does, probably.
They're working on mine right now. Susan finally talked me into doing it. And we mailed ours off a while ago. I got an email a couple days ago. They're finally working on it. Should have the results back, I guess, in a week or so. I'm fairly certain I'm not. My family comes from what I've been able to understand, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, because she's more into the genealogy than I am. I personally don't care past my mom and dad, but most of the genealogy that's been done for my family, we come from Wales. We're not
England.
Wales, England, not not the
Your family. Your family was over here before the Revolutionary War. You have ancestors that fought in the Revolutionary War after your great grandfather basically sneaked out of England with the kids.
And I do know I have somewhere in the greats. I have a not a grandfather, but a cousin that was executed for being a horse thief.
Yes.
And I have again, somewhere back in the greats, and there's a branch. Somehow I am related to, Princess Diana, although she, again, passed 20 years ago. But again, somehow, and I will never ever claim this again, am related to Mitt Romney. So
another Massachusetts politician.
Yes.
Now, Charlie, if you ever get a chance, sneak over to Barnstable, the library over there. Okay. There's a room there that's the original Lothrop home, and it has the original Bible that Reverend John brought over with him in the early 1700s on display there.
Very cool.
That's cool.
That is pretty cool.
Who knows? We could be related. I have a lot of Welsh. My grandmother was a Morgan. And supposedly we go back to a Peter Jones for whom Petersburg, Virginia is named after.
Right. See here, looking. No new comments. Apparently people don't really care about the genealogy. We're not a genealogy podcast, so.
I have a Wales joke, if you guys don't mind. I was sitting at a bar having a drink with a friend of mine, and we heard these two women speaking with English accents. So I went over. I said, "Hey, are you two ladies from England?" And she looked at me and she's like, "Wales." I said, "Sorry, are you two whales from England?"
Schmack! Anyway.
This is why I'm wildly single.
All right. We really do need to talk about this next story because it is all over the place. Susan, let's talk about Delaware.
A recent doorbell video recording from a Delaware resident prompted a Republican lawmaker to question why agents of BAFTE asked a firearm owner for his firearm serial numbers. The agents did not have a warrant. Supposedly, they were investigating straw purchases. The homeowner responded that the guns were in his safe. The homeowner, after back and forth, brings one rifle out, and they verified the serial number was on the list, and that seemed to be enough to satisfy them.
What worries me is how these when you buy a firearm, you fill out your 4473. That information is supposed to get deleted within 48 hours. Okay. The fact that the ATF had a list of serial numbers tells me they're doing something illegal to start with. And showing up in tactical gear for an interview? Can you say intimidation, boys and girls? Yeah, I'm glad the person who is the subject of this interview request was smart enough to get their Ring doorbell and keep it recording through the whole thing, and was also smart enough to release that recording. ATF, my opinion, is being weaponized by the Biden administration, and this is elections matter, folks, and this is why we cannot allow a Biden or Harris administration to come through again.
You know, I know you guys live in free America, but in the Commonwealth here, this is Jedi mind trick stuff. We don't have gun registration. We have transfer registration. So when you buy a gun from a dealer, you do the 4473. They do the background check. After they do the background check, you're told you can make the purchase. They have a transfer form which has the information about the seller, the information about the buyer, and all the information about the gun. The make, the model, the barrel length, the caliber, and the color. And they print out, the dealer prints out 2 of those. They have you sign one, and you keep one. You sign the other one, and they keep it, and then they give one electronically to the state. So if he lived in a gun control state, they could have gone back and traced these. Somehow, I'm sure they could have gone back and traced these to find out which guns he had and if they were being straw purchased and passed along.
Yeah, I think one of the things, from what I understand, a lot of this came from an inspection of a local dealer. Now, unless you live in a border state, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, you do not need to report purchases of a rifle with caliber more than 22 long rifle that is semi-automatic if you buy more than 2 in a week. Handguns, you still must do that. It's the form 33, what was it? There's a form 3310 or something like that. And I think what they're trying to do is catch up people on that. We had a long discussion on this within Grassroots North Carolina, and one of our members who is an attorney said, unless they had a warrant, you had no obligation to let them in or anything. Now, if you were a dealer, that would be different. But as an individual, no. I mean, say, thank you very much. I appreciate the job you're doing, keeping us safe, blah, blah, blah. However, unless you have a warrant, our conversation is ended.
Yeah, and I should mention real quick, none of us are lawyers. We are not giving legal advice. We had this conversation on the weekend edition of The Bullet, and I love Mike Piwowarski, who also is not a lawyer. His advice: law enforcement shows up at your door for something like this, one word and repeat it until you are either in the jail cell or they are gone. That word is lawyer. And keep repeating that word in ad infinitum until they are gone or you see a warrant or you do not volunteer information. I don't know that I would have gone and gotten any of my recently acquired firearms and shown serial numbers. The person was incredibly nice in doing that, but I don't know if I would have been as nice.
Well, even if they were investigating a straw purchase, if it was a true investigation which warranted them to actually check the serial number, they should have came with a warrant. And I agree with Mike. If someone comes knocking on my door asking to check serial numbers, I would not give up, any serial numbers for firearms I owned without a warrant stating that I had to, stating the reason why I'm being asked that question.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, in my case, I do have a Curios and Relics FFL. However, any inspections for a Curios and Relics FFF holder, you have the option of saying, I will do it at your office, and I will bring it to you.
Yeah.
Regular 01 FFLs don't have that option.
All right, let me get a comment in here real quick. John over on the Facebook side says Governor John Carney just signed 6 new gun control laws last month. As a result, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt, Rochester, will not do a thing about this. This also must be the new dress code for Delaware State troopers and ATF agents. Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier. They showed up in tactical vests, and I don't know if they were bulletproof or not. Thank goodness they weren't tested, but the intimidation factor was at a 10 there.
Absolutely. With the vests on that they had, it looked really not good.
Mm-hmm.
Not good at all. Doesn't look like they're coming to pay you a visit.
Unfortunately, no dogs were shot.
Yes. Very much so, and one of the, I believe it got brought up in the on the bullet again on Saturday. Got brought up that I believe it was a state trooper that said, or maybe it was said to the state trooper by one of the ATF agents, "This guy doesn't believe we're law enforcement. I don't blame him." So, yeah,
Great.
Yes. Let's do this. We're let's go to the next story. Susan, this isn't really written very well. Go ahead with the next story.
It's long and confusing.
Okay.
In 2001, the plaintiff was in 8th grade and was 13 years old. His mother had passed, and he didn't know who his father. He lived with his grandmother. His step-grandfather was abusive to both the youth and his grandmother. One day, during an after-school program, he made comments about what he would do to protect himself and his grandmother. No direct threat was made, but the school called a psychiatric emergency team, and after evaluation, he was hospitalized for mental health treatment for 15 days. He was not prescribed medication or treatment after that, and he was not informed of any of the effects of the hospitalization on his rights. After high school, he served in the Marines, and after 3 deployments, he received an honorable discharge and went to work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. In 2019, he was hired by Fresno County Sheriff's Office as a correctional officer. In 2020, he applied for a Deputy Sheriff 1 position, and during a background check, it turned up the hospitalization implicating a lifetime ban on firearms. The question raised, is mental illness like a physical illness, and can it disappear, or is it permanent? California gives no avenue to get Second Amendment rights back after an illness.
You know, almost all illnesses can be treated and cured. There are some illnesses that cannot be cured. But if you get cancer and go through chemotherapy, a lot of cancers, you get through that and the cancer's gone, undetectable in your system, you're healthy, you're done. It does seem in California, if you've ever felt a little sad and went to see a psychiatrist, all of a sudden your Second Amendment rights are gone. That's what I'm getting from this story.
Well, think about it. He served in the Marines and had 3 deployments.
Mm-hmm.
He was trusted as a Marine with a fully automatic rifle.
Yes.
He was trusted in the Bureau of Prisons with potentially a fully automatic rifle. It was only when he applied to be a deputy sheriff in Fresno County that they said, well, we're not really sure. Oh, please, come on. Though I think, reading more into this case, I think they said that it didn't count as an involuntary commitment because there was no judicial evaluation, and he could have gotten the job as a result. But they never truly resolved it.
We're looking at something that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When the child was when the guy was, again, a child, he was 13 years old. So now at 33 years old, this goes back to haunt. And I want to bring this up to, we just had the Safer Communities Act signed, where if you're 18 to 21, they can go back into your juvenile records. This is why that's so dangerous. I've said this on the bullet. I think I've said it here. When I was 13 to 17 days, 17 years, 364 days old, I wasn't an angel. I'm so grateful that they stopped looking at stuff that old, and now it would be, 30 plus years ago, but it'd be almost 40 years ago now. Good Lord! But that is going to happen now with the Safer Communities Act for people who are at the age of 18 to 21 now, going out 30 years from now, they could have that stuff happen to them looking back at records before they were 18.
Another thing I just read about that. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, talking about the SAFER Act, there are some certain states that have higher or stronger requirements which can prohibit you from owning a firearm. Under the SAFER Act now, the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, please, let me get that right. If you are banned in a state, even though that would not be a ban under federal law, they will now treat it as if you were trafficking in firearms, and therefore you are liable for a 15-year penalty or more.
Yeah, and if you try to get a firearm, and you know or reasonably should have known that when you were 13 that mental health issue was going to cause you at 30, after you've done 3 tours in the Marines and you were a prison guard, and you go to buy a firearm privately, now you're up for a 15-year sentence because the bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
So here's what I get. This isn't necessarily going to apply to a 13-year-old, but it's why a lot of people that have firearms don't want to get mental health help. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to come back on them, and it's going to say, hey, listen, you're seeing a therapist, you're talking to a psychologist, you're probably unstable, and you probably shouldn't have any firearms, which is bunk. At 13, this is not even something this kid's going to think about. And honestly, probably at 13, by the time he turned 23, 10 years later, it probably was a nothing burger in his life. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it was, since there was some abuse from his step-grandfather, maybe he remembered more. But I'm going to say at some point, you just kind of forget that you did this. Second of all, this seems to me like when we hear people say, oh, they want to do a more thorough background check. So what is a more thorough background check? Well, let's see. They go back and look and see what you did as a minor to see if they can hold that against you, against having some rights as an adult. And this is just a bunch of bunk as well.
Amen. We got one more story. I'm gonna have Susan read that quick, and we're late on break, so we'll do some commenting on that. But I want to try to get out of here as soon after 7:30 as we can, and we've still got DGUs to get to. So, Susan, why don't you take our last story?
The judge in Antoniuk et al. V. Bruin denied New York State's motion for an extension to respond to Gun Owners of America's request for a preliminary injunction against the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, CCIA. CCIA is Governor Kathy Hochul's attempt to make a mockery of NYSRPA v. Bruin. Mr. Antoniuk held an unrestricted carry permit, and instead of Bruin making it easy to carry, it made it harder. Since the law being challenged takes effect on September 1st, the judge took into account all the time periods required in order to rule on the injunction prior to that date.
I'm going to jump in here real quick first and say that is why I bring Susan in here to read the news and the DGUs. I could have never said, what was that name again, Susan?
Antoniuk.
Antoniuk. I would have butchered that really badly, but good on the judge. This oncoming law from New York State is, as was written in the story, an absolute mockery of the federal judges that the Supreme Court that issued the Bruin decision. It's just a mockery of that. What they said do not do in the Bruin decision is exactly what the New York State legislature and Governor Hochul did. So good on the judge for saying, look, what you've done is going to take effect September 1st. No, you don't get extra time. Get on it. You've got a lot of people. Get it done.
It just takes me back to last week on the bullet. It took you 7 minutes to read through all of the places where Governor Hochul does not want people to carry firearms. 7 minutes.
And the reason Charlie remembers that so clearly is on that particular episode of the bullet, I started reading and I had Charlie up on a single view on the screen, and
7
here I
minutes.
am. I'm looking over at this screen over here. I did not realize as I'm reading down A through T, and each of those is a long sentence, A through T of where you cannot carry in New York State. And here Charlie is, a single shot of him on the screen, and he's not saying, he's being really nice. Were it me, I probably would have done, making funny faces at the camera, or,
It's an itch, not a pick.
All right. Anyway, let's do this. Let's go ahead and step off to break. We got 2 DGUs I want to get to, and we're gonna combine the DGUs and the media section of the show. We're gonna go into our final segment after we get to this. We're gonna hear from JPFO. We'll be right back, folks. Right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. JPFO.org.
And welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. By the way, if you're a lady and want some formal training, get to Detroit this weekend. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations, although they should be. Susan, let's go ahead and take the first one out of Mississippi.
The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office received a disturbance call at 4 a.m. A man had threatened those at a house and then left prior to deputies' arrival. While at the home taking the report, they got a call about a home break-in and 2 men being assaulted before the intruder left. When they arrived at the next home, they found the 2 assault victims and a neighbor who had also been attacked. While gathering the information, yet another 911 call came in. This was about another break-in attempt. By the time they arrived at this third house, they heard a gunshot at a nearby residence. At the last home, they found a man who had been shot while trying to hit someone with his car. He was taken to the hospital where he was listed as deceased. During the investigation, it was revealed that he was involved in every incident. The 2 assault victims were treated at a hospital, and the homeowner who ended the manic episode has not been charged.
Wow. There's a criminal hits multiple houses in the same night. Bing, bing, bing. Police don't even have a chance to wrap up the investigation. Already there's the next one happening. Again, that's something that's been happening a lot lately. You remember, I think it was last week we had the story about the St. Louis area a gas station where the guy had stolen a car, hit multiple gas stations before a concealed carrier stopped him at his last robbery. But yeah, this is, it seems that we're getting a lot of these, that people are going on crime sprees, one right after another. Thank goodness we had an armed citizen that stopped the guy.
Yeah, it's nuts. The 3 houses in a row. Holy moly! Holy moly! It's a little busy night for the bad guy.
Yeah.
It says that they found a. Oh, sorry, Charlie.
No, go.
Well, it says that the man who had been shot was trying to hit someone with his car. So it sounds like the criminal was trying to get away, and the third homeowner shot him. That's what it seems like.
Fourth homeowner.
Or fourth homeowner.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out, I don't know what the laws are in Mississippi, but if he is in his car already getting away and the crime has already been committed, in certain states it may not be lawful or justified to, to shoot the intruder if he's not actively harming someone's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. If somebody's driving at you with their car and you are having problems getting out of the way, a car is a lethal weapon, and you can meet lethal force with lethal force. So yeah, but I'm kind of with you, Amy. We're not the police. We are not. It's not on us to investigate or to stop crimes. If he's getting away, he's getting away. Maybe,
Be a good witness.
Yeah.
Get a description, get video, turn your camera sideways.
I mean, I'm glad the story turned out the way it did, in the sense of, he stopped. Who knows what would happen at the next house? But I just wanted to point that out because that stood out to me in the story.
All right. Let's go ahead and let's talk about Portland, Oregon.
Oh, I think you're going to like this one. Just after midnight, police were dispatched for reports of a shooting. When they arrived on scene, they found a man with a gunshot wound to his arm, who required a tourniquet application prior to being taken to the hospital. As they were treating the injured man, the resident of the home called 911 and told the dispatcher he was involved. Neighbors told the press that they could hear someone yelling, "Get out of my house!" Then there was a commotion, and a man ran past. You could see a blood trail from where the person ran all the way around the block. The neighbor said the neighborhood used to be quiet, but all that's changed in recent years. In Portland? No. They've seen 3 attempted catalytic converter thefts and had a trailer stolen from a news agency crash into their car. You have 2 choices. And since Oregon has been trying to eliminate the choice of arming yourself, your other choice is to move, as the neighbors are considering.
Wow. If somebody is, even in Oregon, if somebody is breaking into your house, that not going back before Bruin, the Heller decision out of the Supreme Court 12 years ago guaranteed you your right to be able to carry inside your house. So somebody breaks into your house, is presenting a clear deadly threat to you. Guess what? Even in Manhattan, you're allowed to defend yourself. The Oregon laws are nuts and going to be getting more nuts if November doesn't go the right way. By the way, this should have made it the news segment. There's in November, there's going to be a ballot initiative where the voters get to choose whether they get to have a permitting system on Second Amendment rights in Oregon. Yeah.
Well,
listen, it sounds to me like these are the people you don't want to trust.
Yeah. You think about Oregon, Portland, defund the police. And even here where I live, the police have now listed a whole bunch of crimes that they're saying, you can report it later, but we're just not going to respond anymore because we don't have enough cops. Because cops have gotten sick of it and said, it's not worth it anymore.
Well, and to an extent, that even happens here in South Dakota for minor violations. If you were to call the police non-emergency number, well, you can file a report. Somebody will get to you eventually, but don't expect help. So, Susan, you used to work right across the street from the police department, but there were some things you just didn't call the police for, right? And you're muted. Susan, you're still muted.
How is this happening?
There you go. Now
it should not be working like this. I hate technology.
So what crimes?
Shoplifting.
Yeah,
shoplifting. You get a description, you write down what they stole, and you file an online report. They'll get to it when they can. A lot of times, like if somebody hits my car in a parking lot, they're not going to come for that because it's on private property, and there's nothing they can do.
It's a. I don't want to say, and we aren't exactly in Sioux Falls. We are not exactly crippled by the defund the police problem here. We actually are going the other direction. We have a very well-funded police department here, so it's unfortunate, but I can only imagine in places like Portland, like Seattle, like New York, where the police are not appreciated, what those officers have to go through.
We're Asheville. We lost over 80 officers in a small city, a third of the police force.
Wow. All right, let's do this. Let's, rather than going to another break, let's go ahead and talk about what we've been doing in media. John, I'm going to go to, because since Rob isn't here tonight, I'm going to go to you first. What's been going on at Only Guns and Money, man?
Well, I only have a couple of new posts up since our last show. First, I posed the question on whether people like Shannon Watts and Chris Brown of the Brady campaign are anti-gun or anti-self-defense, or both. Many on the left want the monopoly of violence to be left to the government. That means we no longer have the right to self-defense. And if we resist, we are considered just as guilty as the attacker. We go to jail. And this goes against everything our founding fathers believed in. The second blog post asks whether the Democrats pushing a new assault weapons bill have forgotten exactly what happened the last time they passed such a bill. That is when the Republicans took both the House and the Senate in 1994. It may be that they know they're going to lose the House, and now is their last chance to pass such a bill. Even if it passes the House, however, I don't think it's going to go anywhere in the Senate. That and more at onlygunsandmoney.com.
John, that brings up a great point. I actually talked about this in the bullet. I think, Charlie, you were on as the co-host when I did that. Shannon Watts, right after the Indiana Mall shooting, brought up that mall's supposed to be a gun-free zone. That young man should not have had a gun there. And,
Chris Brown referred to him as a vigilante.
This really shows you the it shows you their true colors. That they don't believe in self-defense. They don't think you should stop the attacker. And then they're going to turn around and say, well, what are we going to do about this? When you offer them a suggestion of shooting back, they don't want that either. And I know the DC project started the do something, and the hashtag do something, and I wanted to come up with another one called do something else. And it's nothing against what the DC Project ladies are doing at all. It's, well, we need, the anti-gun folks are all, we need to do something. We need to ban these. We need to, have 3-round magazines. No. We need to do something else. We need to keep criminals in jail, and we need to shoot back at bad guys. And once we have these bad guys in jail, once we have them in the court system, how can we just not? I'm not an attorney. How can we just don't keep them? And this is the stuff that boggles the mind of regular folks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just of the opinion homeowners should be able to buy their own Claymore mines. But
yeah, why not?
Yeah,
I was reading, and go ahead.
Go, Amy. You go.
Okay, I was reading something the other day, and I can't remember what article it was, but it said something similar to, like, these criminals choose victims. So what we have to do is make them believe that there are no victims anywhere. And it just reinforces what you were saying, Charlie, that, in order, we have to make them believe that, if they want to commit these crimes with guns, well, there's going to be someone with a gun that's going to shoot back in self-defense. There's no victims here, and so it really infuriates me that people like that don't understand why we choose firearms as tools for self-defense.
Yeah. John, I absolutely agree with you about the Claymores, especially because it'd be really handy in protecting the M1 tank in the garage. So,
I'm sure we all saw the video of the ladies from The View that were talking about this, and they're like, one of the ladies is like, well, when I was, so and so, I had firearms training, and it's hard to hit targets that far away, and it's hard to hit moving targets and blah blah blah. I'm sure she had a minimal amount of training, and certainly she's not a pro-gun person, and she's not shooting regularly and dry firing and taking classes and stuff. So for her, that would be ridiculous. It's like me saying, well, I would never run an ultra marathon. I can't run around the block. Why would I run 100 miles? That would be crazy.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
It's completely ridiculous that they only see things through their blinders and say, well, I can only do this, so this is my only option.
Yeah. And as I mentioned even this episode, but I know I mentioned it on the bullet, I have 4 years ago, weak-handed or non-dominant hand, for those of you who prefer that term, with my left hand, and I'm right-hand dominant with my left hand, behind cover 4 years ago today, I was hitting targets 42 yards away with great regularity. So, yes, it absolutely can be done if you've had training.
There was, I don't know if you guys saw this video. Somebody put a video out. It's, I don't know, a minute and a half long or something. I can't remember who the guy is, so I can't give him credit. But he came out and said, hey, listen, everyone's talking about doing the Dixon drill. And he had people were saying that you couldn't do it with a snub revolver. He had an LCR in 22, and he got 7 out of 8 shots on the silhouette target 40 yards away with his non-dominant hand, because he had a broken thumb in his dominant hand. God bless him, God bless him. I mean, people can take these shots if you spend time practicing and dry firing and practicing, and it's not not that it's not ridiculous, but this is why we do all this stuff. This is why we dry fire. This is why we practice. This is why we pay attention to our surroundings.
Amen. All right. Let's switch gears here and talk about what we've been doing. And we did that already. We talked with John.
Wrapping it up.
Charlie, dude, talk about what's going on with riding shotgun with Charlie or Gungrams or anything else, man.
All right, so I have episode 150 of Riding Shotgun coming out tomorrow, and my passenger is Joe Dramisi, who is from Gun Owners Radio and from the San Diego County Gun Owners. I interviewed him last month when I went out for Gun Prom in San Diego. He's a great guy. He writes a blog. It's on Substack. It's called getagrip.substack.com, and I am really looking forward to taking a road trip this weekend to Detroit and seeing all my pro gun instructor friends and hanging out with Rick Ector and Paul and Amanda and Rob and Patrick. I know Patrick Collins is going to be coming up, and Amy Lucas is going to be there. So I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to this weekend as well. Leaving Thursday, and I've got to get packing because I've got my stuff and the broadcast stuff to bring with. And in case I did not mention it, no Polite Society podcast 1 week from today. I'll be coming back from Detroit, and I do not think I'll be here in time to do the show live. So, no live show next week. We'll continue the week after that. Let me come back here and look, and I think that does it. Amy, you don't have anything you want to bring up for media, right?
No, nothing right now.
Okay. Well, that does wrap up another episode then of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Tim Crosnoe. Well, I'm glad Tim Crosnoe was here today. I don't know if I want to thank him or not for joining us today. For Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, that's going to wrap it. We're done recording. That's going to wrap up our broadcast as well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, everybody who commented. It's much easier when you comment to do these broadcasts. Thank you to everybody who did. And like Mike said, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.